Mark?
As I have stated for a while, and really this journey started at the reflecting pool of Lincoln Memorial. We have to come together as a people, and we have to be better than we think we are. And we have to stop talking about politics, not principles, but politics. And it's really hard. And we have to not have anger. And that's really hard because there's a lot of things that I'm really angry about. But that's not going to get us anywhere. It's only going to divide us even more. And I'm concerned that we are at a place to where we can't even talk to each other. Political correctness is out of control. Anger is out of control. And we are out of control. The government is out of control. Everything. So what happens? That's when a strong man comes in and says, oh, I'll solve all of this for you. We have to solve it ourselves. So I've been trying to put together some strange bedfellows for a while, and Rabbi Kula is a guy that I met in New York, introduced by a mutual friend 4 years ago. And neither one of us thought we wanted to meet each other. And it's taken us a while to be able to get together, just mainly because of schedules, but get together and now sit down and become good, deep friends. And we don't agree necessarily on policies or people we vote for, but we do agree on principles. And what we're trying to do is to model a way to where we can listen to each other. And before we went in the commercial break here, we were just talking about, you had said, you know, where is this anger coming from? We have to find this anger. And I had said, because I can speak for my side, when the First Lady says we have to change our traditions, we have to change our history, I don't want to change my history. I want to correct it. I want to make sure it's accurate. I don't want to change my history, and I don't want to change my traditions. Maybe some of them, you know. I'd like to tweak, but we don't need to change them. And then you responded, how?
It turns out we're always listening for the stuff that either confirms our view or makes us really angry. So conservatives tend to want to preserve conserved traditions. That's what makes them conservative. Liberals tend to want to innovate and change traditions. It's a psychological predisposition that if we're healthy human beings, we hold them together. And you did it perfectly there. You did it perfectly there. You said, I may want to tweak my traditions, but I don't want to change my traditions. And actually, if we could speak to the First Lady and she would be honest with us, we would say to her, tell me the 3 traditions that you grew up with that you don't want to change. And if you heard someone say to you, you have to change those traditions, you would feel just like how you made millions of Americans feel by doing that. But no one is sensitive to how they're speaking and how they're being heard. They're not sensitive to how they're being heard. If you are, and here I will critique the First Lady, if you're the First Lady of the United States, what you have a job to do is to always be speaking in ways, by the way, maybe different than the president even.
Yeah.
Always in ways that allow people to feel that they're one family. You're the First Lady. It's one family. So here's what. There are traditions that have hurt me. There are traditions that do hurt certain communities. We have to have a conversation about which traditions we're taking with us and which traditions we're leaving behind. And we've always done that. All cultures, they take some traditions with them and they leave some behind, and they do it in a different pace. And it's not right for me to say to another community that's using those traditions to hold together their community, to say, those traditions, because they hurt those people, you have to get rid of them right now. Instead, let's talk about how they hurt people, because most of the time they're misunderstood. We have them on both. We have them on all sides. People that we know on both sides. And I don't know who's doing this. No, in America, I don't know who's doing this, because the think tanks should be doing it. But the think tanks are all funded ideologically. So if I tell you an issue and I say Brookings, you know what they're going to say. Yeah. If I say an issue and you say Heritage, you know what they're going to say.
But this isn't about, I don't think this is not about solving that. What they are is like, here's the answer that you should push for politically.
What we have to do is talk about the questions again.
Yeah, we just have to be able to sit down and learn how to listen to one another.
I know, but that's...
Tolerate one another.
You know, and we don't sit down and have the conversations.
And see, and that is the problem. For instance, I know in my lifetime, Columbus Circle will not be called Columbus Circle. That statue is going away at some point. Columbus is a deeply misunderstood and misrepresented in current history. He was a very complex man. It was in those days.
Right.
So for us to say he's a killer is inaccurate, and read his own diary. But okay, you know, the people come over and colonize. Yes, well, that happened, but okay, whatever. So if you look at that and say, all right, well, Columbus, I don't really like Columbus. That's fine. You don't have to, and we hear you out. But you don't have a right to come in and just dictate. And that's where the anger is coming from.
I agree.
When Bush was in office, we heard from the left over and over and over again, he's silencing us, he's silencing us, he's silencing us. Well, we have to be, the right has to do it themselves. The right's doing halfway. The Tea Party, I think, is the redeeming part of the right now, and saying, we're being consistent. We were against it on George W. Bush at the end, and we're against it now. But I think there would be part of the Tea Party that would fall away. If Romney would have won, I think part of the Tea Party would have sat down and been quiet. And that's the problem. We have to be consistent on our values at all times.
And I would say we have to try to begin to give the benefit of the doubt when we hear someone we disagree with. And imagine that the worst. We tend to say when we hear something we disagree with, we give it the worst possible interpretation. You know what? Here's the truth. Here's the truth, Glenn. When I say, why am I here? Why am I here? Okay? I mean, this is not nice to say, but I don't mean it in a not nice way. Prior to meeting you, okay, I did not. I want to say this in a respectful way.
No, you just say it. Just say it because it will be more.
You were crazy. Okay? You were crazy, and you were reactionary and angry and a polarizer. And I think, by the way, all of us are in our own ways as the culture gets more and more polarized. And I sat down with you that first dinner, and I said, oh my God, this is like, I have to all the stereotypes got broken in the conversation. Now that's what we have to do. And that meant I had to listen to you, not speak and say how crazy you are. And by the way, that's what I've had to tell my friends, including my wife. But I mean it in a nice way. I mean it in a nice way. And I want her to come down and meet you, right? And meet your wife. And you know.
Does she still think I'm crazy?
No, not as much, obviously, because she's watched now me with you. And I tell her, you're not going to believe this conversation. You know, so we don't listen. We jump right away and conclude that whatever we heard, we give it the worst possible interpretation. Now, some people we do. You know what? Hamas, we have to give the worst possible interpretation. I get that. I get Hamas, worst possible interpretation, not the benefit of the doubt to Hamas. Benefit of the doubt maybe to Gazans, but not benefit of the doubt. But my fellow American citizen, that's the person I'm going to judge as I'm going to compare my best to their worst. You know what? When we compare our best to someone else's worst, it's funny how we always win. We're always right. Sometimes let's compare my worst. I've said things in my life that could easily, if you didn't go deeper and you didn't listen to me more, it hurt people, I am sure. I know I've hurt people.
We all have.
So what if we actually go the opposite way? I'm going to imagine the best interpretation of that, and therefore I'm going to ask more deeply, what did you really mean by that? Because you know what? It hurt me. It hurt me. We have a country whose traditions are, individual traditions and communities' traditions are being, because of the craziness of globalization and the homogenization, we're losing traditions. We have great cultural loss.
You said something to me that I thought was so spectacular. You said because you live in Manhattan, in your community in Manhattan, traditions are being lost, and you do that poorly. And in Texas, conservative communities, they have that great tradition. I'm one of those people because I am a religious person.
I actually take tradition very seriously. I have traditions about eating. I have traditions about prayer. I have traditions when I walk into my home, I look at the mezuzah. I do not walk through my threshold without a practice. You can call it a practice, a tradition, a ritual. I have rituals of blessing my children every single Friday. I don't want those. I am watching those traditions disappear in my community. Okay? And when I talk about that, I don't want to be perceived as some kind of conservative reactionary who wants to go back to 1700. I understand what's wrong about some of those traditions. I understand that some of those traditions were patriarchal. I understand that some traditions were racist. I'm not stupid. I understand that there's a telling of Columbus that we also need to nuance. But nuance a telling of Columbus and wiping out Columbus Day in the statue, it seems to be there should be something in between that. No, and here's the thing. I get the 10% of both sides that don't want anything in between. I get that. I have no problem.
But those are the ones we're listening to.
But that's what's so crazy. I understand the people who say, Columbus was a colonizer, we have to get rid of the statue, no more Columbus Day, wipe it out, and none of that, we have to tell the story that Columbus oppressed and America doesn't deserve to exist. I get that. I get it. But that's not even 7%. And I get the other people that say, he didn't colonialize, he was Columbus, he's a hero, and we didn't kill him, and Native Americans, no. I get that. They're 5%. But you know what most people know? That in 1492, we had some different values in some ways, or some practices, actually not values. Values, we believed in freedom. We believed in exploration, or Columbus wouldn't have come. And he probably escaped a lot of bad things anyhow. And so why can't we tell that story and then say, but it also is true that in 1492, we actually thought about Native Americans different than we did in the 20th century. And hold it together.
And we can't look at that society and judge it differently than ours. There are good people that are doing bad things.
Correct.
That they don't really understand. But in 20 years from now,
correct,
they will look and go,
oh, we're going to look at things that we do now, okay, that we're doing with the best motivation. We're going to say, oh my gosh,
what have we done?
How did we do that?
Yeah. Rabbi, it's good to see you.
It's great.
Next time, bring your wife.
Great. I will.
Okay. Back in a minute. That was a great conversation. That was an absolute great conversation.